Whether due to not agreeing with the booking, or just sensing they needed a change post 1, 2, 3. These specific matches all ultimately led to wrestlers kissing Vinnie Mac's playground goodbye. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE matches that made wrestlers quit. Number 10, Batista vs. Chris Jericho, Raw 2008. After battling against John Cena at WrestleMania 26 and continuing their feud over the next few pay-per-views, fans all around the world were left stunned by Batista's decision to dramatically call it quits in May 2010. In truth, however, the animal had been thinking about calling it a day for nearly 2 years. Coming during the 800th episode of Monday Night Raw in November 2008, Batista met Chris Jericho in a steel cage. As the pair went to war, the former Evolution man decided that a little bit of color would take things up a dramatic notch. It was in this moment where Batista bladed himself, an act he knew would land himself in hot water with Vince McMahon during the then PG era. Sure enough, the two were called into the boss's office afterwards, but instead of being given a reasonable fine for his actions, Big Dave was slapped with a $100,000 gut punch. After being hit so hard for his mid-match call, the star knew he was done in this current WWE landscape. Later confessing on the Talk Is Jericho podcast, "I think that's the day that I knew things were never gonna be the same." Number 9, CM Punk, Royal Rumble 2014. The CM Punk that seemed determined to alter the business for good back in 2011 was in a rather bad way by the time the 2014 Royal Rumble rolled around. On top of being creatively stifled for much of the time that followed his infamous pipe bomb, Punk's body had begun to break down, with knee issues and a nasty staph infection being just a few of the problems keeping him awake at night. Despite all this though, Punk was still focused on putting in the sort of Rumble shift that would force Vince McMahon to insert the star into the much-desired WrestleMania main event spot. Unfortunately, things wouldn't go to plan in that year's over-the-top rope spectacle, as Punk suffered a sudden concussion. This appeared to be the straw that ultimately broke the camel's back for the voice of the voiceless, as a frustrated Punk followed up his unfortunate Rumble appearance with an explosive meeting with the boss and Triple H. There and then, a tired, hurt, and burnt-out Punk fresh off of a miserable Rumble and disappointing pitch to face the game at Mania 30 called it a day. Number 8, Gail Kim, a Battle Royal, Raw 2011. Compared to her outstanding work in TNA, Gail Kim's time within Vince McMahon's empire can best be described as a bit of a letdown. This was largely due to the fact WWE weren't smart enough to understand the caliber of talent they had in the star though, and had very little to do with Kim's work as a performer. Finally, after years of feeling as though she was being underutilized and underappreciated, Kim decided to take matters into her own hands during a Battle Royal on Raw. Coming into the August 2011 bout to decide the new #1 contender for the Hideous Divas Championship, Kim was informed that she would be one of the first women eliminated, with her night set to end in the very first minute. The former women's champion was clearly infuriated by this move, so instead opted to just eliminate herself from the bout in a matter of seconds. Kim confirmed shortly after that she was not impressed and had officially quit WWE. Number 7, Stone Cold Steve Austin vs. Brock Lesnar, Raw 2002. This match may have never actually happened inside of a WWE ring, but the idea of it was enough to make a WWE legend take his ball and go home. Coming out of WrestleMania X8, the first signs of Stone Cold Steve Austin being exhausted by the professional wrestling industry became apparent, with the Texas Rattlesnake no-showing the Raw after the show of shows. Despite returning to the company and continuing to appear on weekly television, the cracks were spreading beneath the surface. A shoot interview shortly after, taking aim at the poor direction he felt WWE was heading in at this time, seemed to set the stage for Austin's seemingly inevitable departure. Then, when told he would be doing the job for a young Brock Lesnar, the bionic redneck was done. Austin thought it made zero sense to give away such a meaningful moment on free TV without any substantial build, so instead chose to go AWOL. Not for the first time on this list, an accumulation of creative frustration and physical exhaustion consequently led to a star giving McMahon the middle finger. Number 6, Sasha Banks Women's Tag Team Championship match, WrestleMania 35. Speaking of wrestlers being absolutely mentally and physically drained, it's rather depressing just how consistently this narrative plays out, isn't it? After becoming the inaugural Women's Tag Team Champions in early 2019, Bayley and Sasha Banks found themselves dropping the new titles to the Iconics at WrestleMania 35. Feeling a few injuries picked up in the lead up to the event, not thinking the right call was made in that match, and also suffering from depression at the time. That painful loss at Mania 35 ultimately acted as the catalyst for a 4-month hiatus from the company for the boss. Coming out of that match, Banks told Vince McMahon she wanted out, to which the boss responded, "No." Instead, he recommended she take 30 days to think things over, and that month quickly snowballed into 4. Thankfully, in that time, Banks rediscovered her love for wrestling, and has since gone on to carve out another acclaimed run in the company, recently becoming the talk of the town once again for her part in the Night 1 Mania 37 main event against Bianca Belair. Number 5, Rick Rude, Montreal Screwjob, Survivor Series 1997. The Montreal Screwjob kick-started a period within WWE that would see the company go on to become the biggest wrestling promotion on the planet, conquering WCW and housing game-changing talent such as Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and Mankind. However, the act of Bret the Hitman Hart being screwed out of his WWE Championship on his way out of the door at Survivor Series 1997 understandably didn't sit well with many within the company at the time. Notably, Rick Rude in particular was incensed by this portrayal, so much so that he immediately phoned up WCW President Eric Bischoff and asked, "Man, is there room for me there?" Keen to get the jump on WWE in any way he could, Bischoff happily obliged the pissed-off Ravishing One, and it wasn't long before the former D-Generation X ally was kissing Vinnie Mac's treacherous ship goodbye for pastures new. Number 4, Ronda Rousey vs. Charlotte Flair, Survivor Series 2018. Ronda Rousey hit the WWE ground running with an incredibly entertaining WrestleMania 34 showcase debut. By SummerSlam, she'd beaten Nia Jax and become the new Raw Women's Champion after disposing of Alexa Bliss's arm. Then the man happened. Becky Lynch's meteoric rise to the top of the card had taken both the company and Rousey by surprise. This meant that by the time Rousey was set to face off against the last kicker at Survivor Series 2018, the crowd were only ever gonna back one badass. Sure enough, despite Lynch being forced out of action by the aforementioned pain in the jacks, Rousey was still painted as the villain coming into the event. A DQ victory over a newly healed Charlotte Flair did nothing to convince the crowd she was their hero, and boos rained down from the heavens. Evidently still smarting from this first negative post-match reaction, Rousey explained last year, "I love performing, I love the girls, I love being out there, but at the end of the day, I was just like, F these fans, dude." It seems that had fans not rallied against Rousey during and after this blockbuster encounter, she would have perhaps stuck around post-Mania 35. So if she ever does come back, just be nice, guys, okay? Number 3, The Revival vs. Lucha House Party, Raw 2019. To pretty much any fan of the tandem, it felt as though The Revival's eventual release from WWE was a long time coming. Failing to utilize the unit on Raw or SmackDown throughout their tenure on the main roster post-NXT call-up, the duo were finally released into the free agent market in April 2020. However, they decided enough was enough long before that moment. Whilst going back and forth with the Lucha House Party on Monday night in January 2019, the duo sensed that Vince McMahon and his team were never going to fully embrace the tag team division, or give those involved in legitimate units the time and respect they deserved. So after defeating their rivals on one particular occasion, the two finally decided that their time under the WWE banner was up. Seconds after arriving back through to Gorilla in their gear, the future FDR asked for a quick word and requested their releases from the company. It would be 15 months until they'd be granted said wish, but one Lucha party too far was enough to confirm that the pair had no future in Vinnie Mac's playground. Number 2, Neville vs. Enzo Amore, Raw 2017. Though Neville and Enzo Amore did actually meet in the squared circle whilst under WWE contract, with the former infamously dropping his Cruiserweight Championship to the latter at No Mercy 2017, that specific match wasn't responsible for the King of the Cruiserweight's decision to up sticks. It may have set the scene for it, however. A few weeks after said pay-per-view, Neville was informed by Vince McMahon that he would be meeting the loudmouth new face of the division in a lumberjack match on Monday Night Raw. Yet instead of being given a chance to reclaim his rightful place at the top of a 205 mountain that he single-handedly made watchable throughout his run as the purple strap holder, the boss wanted AMORE to go over. This was enough to finally convince the Newcastle native that he no longer belonged in WWE, walking out on that night's Raw and never returning despite the company's attempts to keep him under contract. Turning out to be a career-saving call, Pac would eventually find himself in the land of All Elite upon officially exiting WWE in August 2018, re-establishing himself as one of the baddest men in the wrestling industry. Number 1, Chris Jericho vs. Kevin Owens, WrestleMania 33. Ask any WWE fan what the most captivating storyline coming into WrestleMania 33 was, and 9 out of 10 fans will answer Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens' best friends turned bitter enemies tale. The other one would likely tell you they couldn't wait for Randy Orton to get his hands on Bray Wyatt. The more things change, eh? The point is, these two deserve to be given the main event spotlight after a year of stellar storytelling. However, Vince McMahon had other far beefier plans involving Goldberg and Brock Lesnar that he felt needed the Universal Championship. So instead of having KO and Jericho battle it out for Raw's top prize, a bout that would have seen Y2J win the big one as a face for the first time in his career, Owens dropped the belt to Big Bill, and the hottest feud on Monday nights was booked as the second match on the card. Disrespected by this decision, Jericho would later claim that this made him realize he'd only ever be seen as a second match guy for the rest of his time in WWE. Feeling he had more to offer than that, Jericho then set sail to New Japan Pro Wrestling before eventually finding a new home in AEW. And Le Champion's been making history ever since. And that's our list of any other WWE matches that made wrestlers quit. Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button. Also, be sure to head on over to whatculture.com and find some more incredible articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon. Bye-bye!